Welcome back. It is the bombshell that barely anybody in the mainstream media is talking about. Once again, James Comey revealing how former Attorney General Loretta Lynch asked him to refer to the Hillary Clinton email investigation as, quote, a matter. Let's take a look at this with our panel. Rich Lowry is the editor of National Review. Betsy Woodruff is politics reporter for the Daily Beast. It is good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us. There. He said it straight out. He said that it made him queasy, Rich, because his boss was telling him, just call it a matter, not an investigation. Your thoughts?
And he goes on to call it a matter. Look, this is a very awkward situation for the FBI director to be in. Obviously, highly sensitive political investigation of someone who's running for president of the United States. But this is my problem with Comey, both in this matter and his dealings with Trump. He never really stepped up to the plate. If he felt that the attorney general was telling him to say something based on political talking points, you can resign, you can go out and blow things up and say a special counsel should be appointed to investigate this matter because the attorney general is conflicted and has a political agenda. He never did any of that.
Now, if this were on the other side, if this were a Republican who told Jim Comey, call it a matter instead of an investigation, this would be all over the mainstream media, Betsy. And yet, it's just this convenient thing that no one's talking about on ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post.
I think part of the reason it hasn't gotten more play is that it didn't actually work, right? If Hillary Clinton became president,
he actually did do it.
Right,
he said we opened a matter,
but if Clinton had won,
ignored it.
But if Clinton had won, and then it turned out that the Attorney General was telling the FBI to use a term that wasn't typically used, I think then it would get much more play. But yeah, of course, this is a major new revelation, and it's fascinating. That said, it's important for context to remember that in the months after that happened, Lynch seems to have realized she didn't have as much influence over Comey as she would want. The most important moment was October 27th, the day before Comey announced that he reopened the email investigation. We know that Main Justice, DOJ headquarters, didn't want Comey to make that announcement, that Lynch herself was really concerned about it, but according to the Post, that she actually didn't tell Comey to stay quiet because she thought he would defy her.
Yeah.
Of course he did. That was really consequential.
Well, he did follow her orders to a T and called it a matter instead of an investigation. What gets me about this story, Rich, is that for the last 5 months, the mainstream media has been going with this narrative that the Trump campaign had all these conversations with the Russians. Meanwhile, that was also fake news, and Jim Comey allowed the New York Times to report that and didn't get involved in it. So we're talking about all this potential obstructionism by the Trump campaign when, in fact, the obstructionism was from Loretta Lynch.
Right. Well, what we're seeing really is a not-so-subtle shift away from the Russia story to the obstruction story. And when Trump wrote that letter firing James Comey, every political insider scoffed at the idea that the FBI director had actually told him 3 times that he wasn't under investigation. There were news reports written about how Comey would never say such a thing. And it turns out Comey did really tell him that. And I think what drove Trump crazy about this was not, that Paul Manafort or Roger Stone might be investigated for shady dealings with Russia. It was that his name was dragged through the mud, and he knew he wasn't actually be under investigation, and Comey wouldn't clear the record. Right. I think that's why he fired him. And he would, by the way, Trump would have been better served to be upfront about that rationale from the beginning.
That's what I just said also, that I think that's why he was fired, because he allowed this narrative to continue without ever saying, no, Trump is not under investigation, even though he told the president 3 times that. The mainstream media has also been complicit in this, Betsy. Have you reported this in the Daily Beast about what Comey did?
I believe so, yeah. We've definitely reported pretty extensively on the way that he related to both the Trump administration now and to his relationships with Lynch.
I mean, did you find it stunning that he basically said, yeah, my boss wanted me to obstruct the Hillary Clinton investigation? That's what I mean. Have you reported that on Daily Beast?
I don't remember for a fact if we've talked about that in an article, but it's definitely been part of the context.
Have you reported it?
We have. I'm certain we have. But I can vouch for Betsy. She's a former colleague, and she is a straight-down-the-middle reporter who follows the facts where they lead.
Let's talk about what else we learned. Thank you for that. It's very nice to see the camaraderie here. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, the president plans to file a complaint against former Director Comey for leaking his personal memos. Is branding Comey a leaker the way to go here? What's the difference between that and a whistleblower? And is there a legal distinction that could land Comey in court? We'll discuss with our panel next on Sunday Morning Futures.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
For people with heart failure, tomorrow is not a given. But entrust